A pregnant cleaning lady was rushed to the hospital for a C-section, and the next morning, a homeless man appeared beneath her window, clutching a bouquet of roses. Emily trudged along the cemetery path, where the gray dusk thickened like smoke. The wind swept dry leaves across the ground, and crows perched on barren branches cawed so sharply it cut through the air like a rusty blade. In her hands, she held a cloth, gently wiping an old photograph on a gravestone. Her mother, Sarah, gazed from the faded image with warm, almost lifelike eyes. Emily paused, a lump tightening her throat. "Hey, Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I went to the police again. They won't even listen. They brush me off like I'm nothing. Someone important must be behind this. Some rich guy or one of their own. But I won't give up, Mom. I'll find who did this. I promise." Tears streamed down her cheeks. Emily pressed her forehead to the stone, hoping for a response. But the grave was silent, only the wind howling, echoing her pain. She stood, pulling her thin jacket tighter, and shuffled home, barely noticing the path. Ahead waited an old couch, a cold apartment, and an emptiness that grew heavier each day. Yet deep within, a spark of resolve kept her from breaking. Emily grew up in a world where everything creaked and crumbled. Their home, a sagging wooden shack on the city's edge, looked like a set from a film about abandoned places. The walls, worn by time, let in drafts, and the leaky roof left rusty puddles on the floor. Sarah, Emily's mother, worked as a cleaner at a roadside diner. She'd come home with weary eyes but always found the strength to smile at her daughter. "We'll make it, Emmy," she'd say, ruffling her light brown hair. "Just stick with school. That's your ticket to a better life." Emily knew nothing about her father. Sarah stayed silent, offering only a sad smile when asked. Emily stopped asking, but a shadow settled in her heart. A sense of being incomplete, like a puzzle missing a piece. School was a nightmare for Emily. Her patched clothes and a knit cap with a goofy pom-pom she hid in her backpack made her a target for mockery. "Rag girl," her classmates jeered, and Emily shrank, wishing she could disappear. Her only friend was Jake, a scrawny kid with glasses they called Four Eyes. He shared his candy, helped her with math, and listened quietly to her complaints. "You're not a rag girl," he'd say, adjusting his glasses. "You're just different, and that's awesome." Emily graduated with good grades, but Sarah's dream of college for her daughter remained just that, a dream. Life had other plans, and as Emily stood on the threshold of adulthood, she felt her childhood dissolve into the cold wind of the past. Before we proceed, kindly share a comment with the city you're reading this from. Thank you. That night, Emily woke to the acrid smell of smoke. The lights in their house flickered as usual, but now there was a crackling sound and a strange heat from the kitchen. She leapt up, heart pounding like a trapped bird. The kitchen was ablaze. Flames licked the walls like a starving beast. Sarah lay on the floor, choking on smoke. "Mom!" Emily screamed, rushing to her. With strength she didn't know she had, Emily smashed a window and dragged her mother outside. The cold air burned her lungs, but she didn't stop. Neighbors, roused by her cries, ran to douse the fire with buckets, but the wooden shack burned like kindling. By the time the fire truck arrived, only smoldering ashes remained. Emily and Sarah, barefoot in nightgowns, stood clinging to each other, staring at the ruins. Neighbors whispered, "At least they're alive." But for Emily, it was little comfort. Their fragile life had crumbled to dust. They rented a dingy one-room apartment on the outskirts, and Sarah began pleading with city officials for help. The response was always the same. Your house was condemned. You refused relocation. Get in line. Seeing her mother fade, Emily made a choice. Mom, I'm getting a job. No college. We'll manage together. Sarah wept, but didn't argue. That evening started like any other. Emily fried potatoes, humming an old song Sarah loved. But as the hours passed, Sarah didn't return. Anxiety coiled in Emily's chest like a cold snake. Sarah was never late. Emily called hospitals, but the answer came from the last place she expected. The police. Your mother was hit by a car, the voice on the phone said, dry as autumn leaves. She died at the scene. Emily's world collapsed. At the morgue, she could barely stand, fainting at the sight of her mother's broken body. The funeral passed in a haze, with neighbors murmuring, "Poor girl, all alone now." The hit-and-run case was closed with shocking speed. Emily begged and shouted at the police station, but they shuffled her from office to office. No evidence, they said. The driver fled. Let it go. But Emily couldn't let go. She took a job as a janitor at a small firm, wiping down desks and floors to pay rent. Her life became a grind, but deep inside burned a vow: find the culprit. The workday dragged like molasses. Emily, with a bucket and mop, glided through office hallways, ignoring the pitying smirks of coworkers. She was used to it. But that day, everything changed. A man entered the lobby, tall, in a suit, with a confident stride and sharp eyes. He carried a leather briefcase, a glinting pin on his lapel that Emily couldn't make out. She froze, catching his gaze. Good afternoon. His voice was deep, with a slight rasp. Where's the director's office? Blushing, Emily pointed to the second floor. He nodded but lingered, scanning her from head to toe. His look wasn't just curious. It was appraising, like he was sizing up a painting at an auction. A chill ran down her spine. Hours later, while cleaning the restroom, she spotted a black folder on the windowsill, the one the man carried. Without thinking, she grabbed it and ran to the director. Mr. Thompson, your guest left this in the restroom, she blurted, handing over the folder. The director smiled. Oh, that's David Carter, our partner. Thanks, Emily, you're a star. I'll call him. That evening, as Emily prepared to leave, a voice called out, There's my hero. She turned to see David, smiling, but his eyes held a glint that unsettled her. Thanks for the folder. Those were important papers. Let's grab dinner. I owe you. Emily tried to decline, embarrassed by her worn sweater and cheap jeans, but David insisted. No buts. Hop in the car. We'll fix your look on the way. He took her to a boutique where clerks swarmed, dressing her in a peach dress, soft boots, and a stylish coat. In the mirror, Emily barely recognized herself. She felt like a movie star, but unease gnawed at her, as if she were playing someone else's role. Dinner was a dream. Crystal chandeliers, live music, dishes she'd never tasted. David spun tales of his travels, yachts, and skyscrapers, and Emily, enchanted, hung on every word. Yet a question stirred. Why would a man like him care about a janitor like her? David Carter swept into Emily's gray life like a whirlwind. Their meetings became regular. He'd call, set a time, and a courier would deliver boxes of dresses, shoes, and jewelry. Emily, used to threadbare sweaters, felt like a fairy tale princess. Restaurants, theaters, nighttime city strolls. It was a world apart from her old life of reading dusty books found in the attic. David's words flowed like fine wine, and Emily, without realizing it, was swept into his orbit. But one night, the fairy tale cracked. In a lavish hotel suite where candles cast soft shadows, David drew closer than ever. His warm, insistent hands slid over her shoulders, his whispers promising love and forever. Emily, trembling, stammered, "David, I've never... I'm scared." He smiled, but a flicker of impatience crossed his eyes. "Don't be afraid, Emily. You're mine. Don't you want this?" She did. His warmth, his attention, his world. But a faint warning, like a distant lighthouse, signaled something was wrong. Her heart won, and she let herself sink into his embrace. A month later, she felt off. Morning nausea, back pain, and a fatigue that clung like wet snow. She chalked it up to exhaustion, but the symptoms persisted. A doctor's visit turned her world upside down. Pregnant, with twins, joy mixed with panic. How would she tell David? What would he think? She waited for their next meeting, nervously tugging at the dress he'd given her. David noticed her pallor instantly. "What's wrong, Emily? Been crying?" Gathering courage, she blurted, "David, I'm pregnant. Twins, they say. Are you happy?" His face hardened. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "You're serious?" "Emily, this isn't in my plans. I thought you were on something. Look, it's not too late. I'll find a clinic, get it handled quietly." His words hit like a slap. The man who called her his princess now spoke of her babies as a problem. "David, these are our children. How can you say that?" Her voice shook. His tone turned cold. "Emily, don't complicate things. I'm not marrying you. You're fun. But this was just a fling. Do what I say, or we're done." Emily fled the restaurant, tears burning her eyes. At home, she collapsed on the couch, clutching a pillow, sobbing until she fell asleep. Her dreams of love shattered, leaving only pain and fear. But deep inside, a resolve grew. She'd keep her babies, no matter the cost. Emily kept working, though each day was a battle. Her belly wasn't showing yet, but exhaustion and nausea drained her. Co-workers whispered behind her back, and her boss gave disapproving looks. She felt more alone than ever, until she met Michael. It happened outside her building, where Emily, emptying a bucket of dirty water, sank onto a bench. Her back ached, her hands shook. She broke down, staring at her red, chapped palms. Near the dumpsters, a man in a tattered jacket and a ridiculous hat rummaged around. He approached, cleared his throat, and said, "Hey kid, why the tears? Pregnant and scrubbing floors? You can't keep that up." For reasons she couldn't explain, Emily poured out her story. Her mother's death, David's betrayal, her fear for the future. The man, calling himself Michael, listened quietly, nodding. Then he left, saying, "Wait here." An hour later, he returned with a bag. Apples, bread, sausage, even fresh rolls. "Eat," he grunted. "Not from the trash. Bought it with bottle money." Touched, Emily invited him for tea, but Michael mumbled about errands and left. From then on, he appeared often, carrying buckets, bringing food, listening to her. He was quiet, but his silence held warmth. Emily began to look forward to his visits, a ray of light in her dark world. Her pregnancy grew harder. Her belly swelled, her back ached, and money dwindled. She kept cleaning stairwells, despite the concierge, Mrs. Vera, scolding, "Drop those buckets, girl. Want to give birth on the stairs?" Emily brushed it off, but her strength faded. Michael helped when he could, but a blizzard kept him away one day. Lugging buckets up floors, Emily felt a sharp pain. Blood ran down her legs. She barely made it to her apartment and called an ambulance. The hospital was a nightmare. Shouts, chaos, harsh lights. Emily passed out but woke as a mother. Her twins, Noah and Sophie, were born premature, tiny as baby birds. They were whisked away, and Emily lay staring at the ceiling, whispering, "I did it, Mom. I saved them." Michael showed up at the hospital, soaked and disheveled. He'd claimed to be the father to get in and waited in the hall until the doctors confirmed Emily and the babies were okay. The next morning, Emily glanced out the window and saw him outside, laughing like a kid, writing in the snow in huge letters, "Emily, I love you. Thanks for the kids." Wardmates giggled, calling him that hobo, but Emily, seeing his smile, felt a warmth she hadn't known since childhood. A week later, Emily was moved to a shared ward. Her babies, still frail, were in incubators, but she could feed them. Each time she looked at their tiny faces, her heart swelled with love. But one day, a man in a police uniform entered. Emily froze. It was Michael. "Emily, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," he began, sitting beside her. "I'm not homeless. I'm a cop, working undercover, tracking dealers in your area. When I saw you crying on that bench, something clicked. I love you, Emily. Marry me. I'll raise Noah and Sophie as my own. I've got an apartment. We'll be together." Emily wept, nodding, "Yes, I will." But her joy was cut short by a call. David, back from abroad, had learned about the twins and declared, "They're mine. I'll take them. I'll get a DNA test and take them overseas. Don't fight me, Emily. I'll crush you and your cop." Emily trembled, but Michael held her. "He won't touch you or the kids. I promise." His father, John, a retired detective, devised a plan. Send Emily and the babies to the countryside while he and Michael dug up dirt on David. The 2 weeks at Aunt Kathy's farm felt like an eternity, but Emily found peace there. The old house, smelling of herbs and fresh timber, became her sanctuary. She sat by the fire, cradling Noah and Sophie, listening to Kathy hum old lullabies. The twins, sensing the warmth, slept better, their pale cheeks rosy from farm milk and herbal teas. But Emily's heart ached with worry for Michael. With no cell service, every creak of the floorboards felt like a harbinger of bad news. When she heard an engine, Emily's heart leapt. She ran outside, heedless of the icy wind biting her cheeks. Michael stood by the porch, tall in his worn jacket, snow melt dripping from it. His face was gaunt, shadows under his eyes, but his blue eyes burned with resolve. Emily rushed to him, slipping on the icy path, her heart pounding. "Mike!" she gasped, grabbing his shoulders. He pulled her close, his embrace so tight she felt his heartbeat match hers. His breath warmed her temple, and for a moment, the cold, the wind, the fear, it all vanished. He pulled back, holding her shoulders, and said hoarsely, "Emily, I found him. It was David. He killed your mom." The ground seemed to shift. Emily staggered, gasping for air. Memories flooded her. Sarah's smile, her work-worn hands, her voice singing an old tune, the night she never came home. David, the man whose words once felt like music, whose touch promised a new life. He knew. All along, he knew. How did you find out?" Her voice shook, words scraping like stones. Michael gripped her shoulders, his gaze steady but pained. "I checked the cameras on Main Street. Took time, but I found it. Night, rain, a black SUV, David was driving, drunk as hell. He got out, Emily, looked at her, your mom, lying on the asphalt, and drove off. His connections buried it, bribed who they needed, erased the evidence. But Dad and I called in old friends, honest ones who can't be bought. David's in custody now. He won't get away, I swear." Emily closed her eyes. tears scalding her cheeks. She saw David smile in the restaurant, his hand adjusting his tie, his voice promising the stars, and that same hand turning the key, driving into the night, leaving Sarah to die. She told him about her mom, her pain, and he'd listened, nodded, held her, and said nothing. The fragile bridge to the man she thought he was collapsed, leaving only emptiness. "I want to see him," she said, her voice low but firm. "I need to look him in the eyes, Mike. I have to understand how he could do it." Michael frowned, wanting to shield her, but saw the fire in her eyes, his own resolve mirrored back. He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll make it happen. But I'm with you, Emily. You're not alone." She squeezed his hand, feeling its warmth. Despite the pain tearing her apart, she wasn't alone anymore. Michael was her anchor, her light, and for him, for Noah and Sophie, she'd find the strength to face this. The holding cell's interview room reeked of dampness and fear. Emily sat behind the glass, fingers clenched until her knuckles whitened. When David was brought in, she barely recognized him. The polished prince she'd once adored was gone. Before her was a man with a gray face, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. His once pristine suit was wrinkled, his commanding gaze now dodging hers. "Why'd you come?" he rasped, irritation in his voice. "To gloat that you outsmarted me?" Emily stayed silent, gathering strength. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but trembled with pain. "You knew, David? I told you about Mom, how she was hit on Main Street, how she died. You listened, nodded, and it was you. Why didn't you call for help? Why did you just leave?" David gave a crooked smirk, like a cracked mask. He rubbed his face as if to erase her words. "I was wasted, Emily, completely out of it. She was on the asphalt, and I checked her pulse. Nothing. What was I supposed to do? Turn myself in? Go to jail for a decade?" His voice rose, then faltered as if ashamed. "What's the point? She's gone." Emily felt tears burn but held them back. She wanted to scream but instead asked, "And the kids? You told me to get rid of them, called them a burden. Now you want them? Why, David?" He stared at the floor, fingers fidgeting with his sleeve. When he spoke, it was almost a whisper. "I'm sick, Emily. After that trip abroad, doctors say I can't have kids anymore. I came back, heard about yours, and thought, my last chance, to be a dad. But you're right. I'm no father, maybe not even human. Forgive me if you can." Emily stood, her heart pounding, but inside was only coldness. She'd expected relief, rage, something, but there was nothing, just emptiness. She walked out, not looking back, leaving David with his hollow eyes and empty promises. David got 7 years. In prison, he sent Emily a letter. Shaky lines begging forgiveness for Sarah, for her pain, for his lies. He asked for photos of Noah and Sophie, to know they're growing up happy. Emily read it by the window, then tore it into tiny pieces. She wanted no trace of him in her life. Life with Michael bloomed like a spring garden after a long winter. They married in a small courthouse, no fancy dresses or crowds, just genuine smiles and warmth. Michael adopted Noah and Sophie, giving them his last name, Reynolds. His parents, especially John, the gruff ex-detective with a kind heart, embraced the twins as their own. John bounced them on his knee, telling them stories, while Margaret, Michael's mother, softened despite her initial grumbling, melting at their tiny hands and giggles. Emily learned to be a wife and mother. She baked apple pies, mastered soups that made Michael sigh happily after his shift. Evenings, he'd cradle Noah and Sophie, singing lullabies, while Emily watched, thinking, "This is my happiness. Real happiness." Every Sunday, they visited Sarah's grave. Emily brought wildflowers, her mom's favorite, and sat by the stone, sharing everything. Noah's crawling attempts, Sophie's sleepy smiles, Michael's talk of a third child. "Mom," she whispered, touching the cold stone. "I thought finding him would make it better. It didn't. You're gone. But you'd be proud, Mom. I have a family. Michael, he's real. He loves us. I'm not alone anymore, you hear? Never again." The sun broke through the clouds, snow sparkling like diamonds, and Michael stood beside her, holding her hand. Emily felt the ashes of her past, heavy and bitter, dissolve in the light of her new life. She smiled, leaning into her husband, and for the first time in years, believed everything would be okay.